Welcome to Power of the Tribe podcast. I'm your host, John Connors. I'm also the founder and head instructor of Connors Martial Arts here in Norwood, Mass. We teach Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, Muay Thai kickboxing, and mixed martial arts. Come on down. We'll make your life better someday when we open up. It's May 1st, Dan. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you doing?
Dan, you look great.
Yep.
My hair, I haven't had a haircut in 2 months, I think. I'm starting to look like the professor from Back to the Future.
I'm unaffected by the closing of the barbershops.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it. You're keeping it all together.
I'm
getting like
I'm
getting an old man sholo. You know what the sholo is like? The what do they call it? A mullet.
Oh yeah.
Short in the front, long in the back. Sholo. But my short in the front is just from receding hairline, and then the back keeps getting longer. Yeah.
You could be one of those guys who has like the receded hair and like the ponytail.
I can't be that guy. That's the worst.
I don't know. You could be that guy.
A lot of people play that off, right? A lot of guys do that.
I'm not sure I see that as your look, but
I see guys. There's a bartender in one place I used to go back in the old days, Dan, when we could go to a bar room or a restaurant.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
And he's just putting it out there. He's like very thin on top, and he's got the ponytail back there. They're just flaunting it.
Yeah, I know some guys that virtually no hair left, like the same amount I have, and they still
do
got that little ponytail from the remnants.
What do you think about that?
I'm not a huge fan.
I'm not.
I don't think I'm gonna go that way. No offense. Right now, there's like angry, receded hair ponytail guys among our listeners. Like, unsubscribe.
I like your look, Dan. Nice and clean.
Direct. I'm keeping it. I think we've officially reached the point of nothing more to say about coronavirus. Like, this is it.
Well, we typically start these podcasts where I say we're not going to talk about it because we're not experts. Then we talk about it for about 15 minutes. But you know what? Now I'm flipping, Dan. I mean, these experts, they're changing their mind every other week. And I feel like I'm just as informed as these people.
Well,
so
I was just informed by you and Dimitri. I somehow missed this, that in about a week, it's going to be mandatory masks
in Massachusetts.
Yeah. It seemed a little strange to me, a little late in the game to order the mask. But the reason I thought of it is we directly were told you don't, at one point about a month ago or a month or two, we're like from the Surgeon General and,
Dr. Fauci.
Fauci, as high up as it goes, like you do not need to wear masks.
Yeah.
So that, to your point about they're not really being experts that are necessarily handing out the right advice, there's some evidence for that. I guess it's a changing game. Everyone just keeps changing.
I guess,
their minds,
but if you're the CDC, the WHO, this is your business. I mean, isn't this why you exist? To figure this stuff out?
I thought they existed to prepare for this as well, which apparently didn't really seem to be the case. But
yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating.
But there's nothing more to say about it. We're just in the midst of it. We still don't know.
Going to hang together, get through it.
Yep. We don't know exactly how this is going to play out still.
Are they saying 2 weeks? Did they say the 2 week thing?
Roughly, as of now, I think we're still 2 weeks out.
This is our third 2 week out from being out, right?
And consecutively. Not overlapping.
Crazy.
We'll all see. I just hope everyone out there is doing well financially now. I think now the initial panic has faded a little. I think people are focused a little more on the financial impact, and that's a concern for a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of listeners, for you and for a lot of gyms out there.
Yeah, definitely.
Gyms are definitely hit by this. Jiu Jitsu is a very close quarter thing, obviously.
I think so. I hope people, stay strong, keep their wits about themselves, be smart, but, not panic or anything,
Yeah.
Dan, I saw somebody post something on Facebook, and I wanted to discuss it because I think it pertains to a lot of things we talk about. Jiu-jitsu, sort of challenging yourself in life, different things like that, right? I think our audience will be interested. And I saw this post, and I didn't comment on the post because I didn't want the person that I would reply to feel like I was attacking them, because that's not the point. But I think there's a greater message in here. So let me explain myself. So I believe it was Matt Thornton of Straight Blast Gym, the great Matt Thornton,
yes.
Well-known jiu-jitsu guy. And he posts a lot of cool stuff on the different social media accounts. I don't remember what his post was, but it might have had something to do with COVID-19 and training and jiu-jitsu and so forth. And somebody commented, and they said to this effect, they said, even when we can go back, I'm not going to go back because I care about my grandparents too much. I think it's irresponsible to risk harming them if I go to jiu-jitsu and so forth. And just in general, not talking about that person specifically, I think that kind of thinking can represent sort of a trap. So I think there's two things on that line of thought is happening there. One is somebody who says something like that is they're sort of virtue signaling, right?
Could be.
They're like, they could be sending a message out to the social media world. Look how wonderful I am. I'm morally superior because I'm taking the high road here, doing this, blah, blah, blah. So that could be. But there's another thing happening there too, Dan. A person taking that tack could also be opting out of competition. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a little bit of a trap. It's almost like a, I think you could call it like a virtue trap, maybe, or something.
Or competition, or looking for any reason to not.
But it just sounds like a great reason, right? Yeah. But I think it is a trap because ultimately, I think we all need to compete in the broadest sense of the word in order to optimize our satisfaction in life. You know what I mean? If we all just sit on the couch and don't try to do anything and just eat junk food.
Which is what everyone is doing right now.
I don't know if everyone, but a little bit, you're not going to feel good about yourself, right? There's no satisfaction there. And that's a trap. So I was listening to this podcast, Dan, that I reference very often. It's called Beat Your Genes. And they talk about evolutionary psychology and how it applies to life. And they talk about, it's Dr. Doug Lisle and I think Dr. Jen Howk now is on there. They talk about the self-esteem process. So the way they define the self-esteem process is we all sort of have an internal audience that's watching us and seeing what we do. And it's different for everybody. And it's essentially measuring us by how much effort we're putting out there. You know what I mean? Are we facing up to competition to a reasonable extent? You know what I mean? We don't all have to go actually even compete in jiu-jitsu tournaments. Like just going to jiu-jitsu training and rolling with guys is competition, right? A lot of times it's like, I don't want to roll with this guy. He's too tough. This is going to be unpleasant, right? Have you ever felt that way rolling?
Yeah, it's funny. You reminded me of Leo, who was on we've mentioned a few times and was on the podcast back in the day.
Leo, like Akiki?
Yes.
Yeah.
He put it as plainly as I've ever heard anyone put it, where he just flat one day was like, all the time, I don't want to come in here. He's like, you think I want to roll with this guy or that guy or you or this guy? You know, he's like, I don't want to roll with him or him or him. Like, and he was like, but that's why I come in, and and he seeks them out, you know, and that you know Leo,
yeah,
that he'll not only not avoid these kind of confrontations. He seeks them out,
yeah,
you know, like, or things that make him uncomfortable, and in the realm of competition,
right,
you know, he seeks it to challenge himself. But at the same time, you might think someone that seeks to challenge themselves is like, they like it, you know, they're like, I want to challenge myself. But he put it as like, I don't always want to. Like, I want to stay on the couch. I don't want to come in here. I don't want to deal with this guy and that guy. And he's like, but that's sort of why, I think he put it as like, that's why I come in. You know, I come in because I don't want to face those, because I'm uncomfortable facing these challenges. That's why I make sure I do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly to sort of the second point these people were talking about, is that, like, we can't just say, oh, we're going to be happy all the time, and like we're going to just have bliss, like walking around in rainbows and flowers and sunshine and everything's, I'm happy, happy, happy. It doesn't really, that doesn't work. The human nervous system, the human mind doesn't work that way, you know?
I've thought of that in terms of, because the goal of a lot of people, and like what I've had my eye on, is like, what's that goal? Is like, get to that beach house, a retirement, and a beach house, and like I just have a house, a beautiful house with whatever it is for you, a pool, a beach, or like in the woods or something. But it's sort of an illusion, right? It's like, and then what are you going to do? Sit at that house forever? Do you know what I mean? Like just sit there and then just go out to the beach every day. Like, you know, how many days will it be before you're like, I don't want to go to the beach? You know, like, or how many days will it be before you're like, I don't really feel like sitting by the pool? Like that image in your head of, I think this is what you're saying, of that bliss, that constant happy bliss, like that you get on vacation, right? Because it's only a few days or a week where you can just sit by the pool, drink a margarita, and, you know, go to the beach, and you're like, oh, I just want that all the time. But I think what you're saying is you can't have that all the time.
It has to be in contrast or juxtaposition to some sort of striving or work or effort, right? Like if you work real hard and then you go on a vacation, it's so much nicer, right? You just enjoy it that much more.
I've had both. I've had jobs where I hated the job. You know, I just hated it. I used to say that I'd pull up in the parking lot and like pep talk myself in the rearview mirror of the car. Like, all right, literally talk to the rearview mirror going, just walk in there. Just walk across this parking lot.
You can do it.
You can do it. You'll be back. It's 9 hours or 10 hours or whatever it is. You'll be back in the car before you know it. You can get home. Let's go. Let's go. Like, you know, that's how much I hated the job. And
wow, that's a bad job.
But then I loved my vacations. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like I could never match those vacations. Because then you go from there to Sanibel Island in Florida, and you're just like, oh, this is just bliss. And I can go to the same place, like go to Sanibel Island in Florida nowadays, and it's like, oh, this is nice, but it's not the same. You know, it's not. It doesn't have that juxtaposition you were talking about.
That's interesting.
So I've been on both sides.
What was that job, Dan?
It was consulting at a marketing company, and I just didn't fit in well with the company's since folded. But I just didn't fit in with the people around me. I used to say you could do any job. You could probably enjoy the hardest jobs if you sort of like the people around you. You know, if it's your friends. But if you sort of don't get along with your boss and don't really get along with your coworkers, I sort of arrogantly went in like, oh, I'm sure I can get along with anybody, and it turned out not.
What was the difference in their personalities?
They were. It was a very type A, sort of whatever the opposite of laid back is. Like it was a very, very, like my boss would run back and forth to her office constantly. Like she wouldn't walk. She'd always be like holding papers and running, and like almost like on the verge of tears.
If you shave a second off between offices,
and I would just be like, sort of like I'd have my chair back on the two, like leaned back on the two, like maybe a foot up, and you know, and it drove her crazy. And I don't want to get into my sport, but I had this one, a perfect example was I had to sell something to a client, and I did it. It was like sell some work to a client, and I met with the client and sold it. We all had a meeting, and it worked. She called me into the office afterwards and was like, and I thought it was to congratulate me. And she said, like, I just was really concerned about, I saw you like 5 minutes before this meeting, and you were leaned back in your chair, and you were talking to the guy next to you, and you were laughing, you had a foot up, and I'm like, yeah, but because I was ready. I sold it. Like this was after it already worked. And she was like, I just don't like to see that sort of attitude going into an important meeting like that. Like you should be getting your stuff together and getting ready and I was just like, but I already sold it. And that's when I knew, like, it was a perfect example of how it was every day there. It was like
crazy people.
Because I was sort of like, am I getting the work done? Yes, then I'm good, right? But she wanted a different attitude from me. Yeah. And my coworkers mostly agreed with her. Like, dude, I mean, it wasn't like I couldn't sit among them and be like, can you believe this? Like they were mostly on her side.
They bought into the culture.
So I felt all alone. That's a bad feeling. I'd sort of sit there and be like, no,
I worked
really.
at a company like that. I came up with the expression, golf balls and eggshells. They were like wound tighter than golf balls, and they were as fragile as eggshells. People would get upset over the simplest things. So crazy.
Yeah. And also it was marketing, so it wasn't like, I don't know, it all seemed sort of not that critical. Like the things that they were getting like super uptight about, it was like the color on of some of the text on a Toyota commercial. It's like,
Yeah.
It's not
Not
cure for
moving
cancer
any
here,
needle.
or like, so yeah, I had jobs that I just didn't like going in there at all. It's like when you feel like you're not liked at the job, it's not a good feeling,
Not good.
So
Yeah.
I had other jobs that I really that I liked, and
I'm
got
always
along with
astounded when people don't like me.
Yeah.
It happens a lot, Dad. I don't know what I'm doing, but
how is this possible? I told you I see it as a very bad quality in someone if they don't like me. I'm like, what's wrong with you?
Definitely.
But also that consulting life, it also, now I'm still in the thick of it, but that life of like logging all your hours, you have to do it for consulting. But for this company I was at, I think they didn't quite do it, but they were trying it for a while. It was literally 15-minute increments, like write down what you were doing.
Your TPS reports.
In 15-minute increments.
That's
so I'd be like,
pretty
went to the
dehumanizing.
bathroom.
Yeah.
Like, also for me working, it was like, I'm going to say 40% of the day was spent pretty much doing like chatting with coworkers and doing it. Like, so I'm like, now I have to account for every 15-minute increment. And it was just miserable for me. Like the environment was miserable.
Sounds awful.
The end of every hour having to be like, all right, I guess I worked on this report or that, it wasn't for me. Other people thrived there though. So, what can I say?
Insanity. Okay. Back to our self-esteem process. Oh, it's all about optimizing happiness. So instead of being happy all the time, if we don't shy away from competition and we sort of challenge ourselves appropriately, we can optimize our levels of happiness, have the right amount of happiness. And like you said, you can't be happy all the time, right? But if we're not, if we're running away from competition, we're probably not going to maximize our happiness, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever done that, Dan, like weaseled out of something and then regretted it?
Like a specific example?
Yeah.
I'm sure I have. I can't think of it. Do you have something in mind for yourself?
I can't think of it, but I'm sure I have. Yeah. It's not a good feeling, right?
Yeah. I feel like it's right at the tip of my tongue. I'm like, yeah, that rings a bell.
Right.
But I can't think of it. I'd have to go back a ways.
Yeah, we compete at everything. That's our nature, right? We're always competing pretty much all the time with everybody, a little bit. So, but we got to, have the right amount of competition, compete in the right way. Don't run away from competition to gain a little signal
I think
of virtue.
one thing that comes to mind from like when I was a little kid, but it's relevant that I remember it from when I was a little kid, is like times that I felt like I didn't stand up for myself. So it's not like weaseling out of a competition or a job or something.
It's tricky, right?
But it was like, I was in middle school, so this is literally 7th grade. So I guess that says something that I remember it.
Okay.
And some kid came up. I was standing with friends, and he was friends with my friend, but didn't know me.
Okay.
And he just came up and just insulted me. Like he just came up and was like,
sounds like a 7th grader.
Who's this homo or something like, and I'm just like, and I was so flabbergasted at that. I was 13. I was like, what's happening? Or 12 or something. And I'm like, what? Why is he saying that to me? Like I'm friends with, like
so
we have
right?
a mutual friend. But I just sort of stood there like, what? Why do you? And our mutual friend was like, no, he's a friend. And I was like, all right. And didn't say anything, like just sort of nothing happened. And it like tormented me at the time because I was like, I didn't do anything. I didn't stand up for myself. I didn't defend myself. I didn't. And so it's not quite like avoiding competition, but it is sort of. It's like I avoided conflict. I didn't stand up for myself. Wasn't brave, like I didn't.
But you probably, you remembered it, so you probably learned a lesson where you're like, well, I'm not going to let that happen again.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because you're like, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, screw that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I'd rather end this with conflict than end it that way.
Yeah.
Because it didn't feel good that I didn't do anything.
Yeah. Well, I think it's more nuanced than most people think. You hear the trite advice, you got to stand up to the bully. Yeah. And sometimes you shouldn't because the bully will beat the living shit out of you, right?
Yeah. A lot of the trite advice, when you examine it, you're like, well, sometimes.
Yeah. When I look back now at myself, I have that story I told on this podcast during the blizzard of 78 where we snuck by this group of older kids who were, they ended up attacking some other couple guys. And looking back, we were afraid to weasel out. We're like, we're going to have to walk 1.5 miles around to the other bridge, which is definitely what we should have done.
Yeah, and you look back and you're like, of course that's the smart thing, right?
Definitely.
It's sort of, I think everyone's, for some reason, I don't know why, this is like a common thing everyone's heard. It's like, when you get to prison, walk up to the biggest guy and punch him right in the nose. And I'm like, and now you think of it in adulthood and you're like, that's probably a really, really bad idea. Like, it's not a movie.
Probably not the optimal strategy. Yeah.
You will probably really, really regret doing that. I'm not a prison expert. I mean, someone else could maybe either back me up or tell me I'm wrong on that.
A lot of guys
I suspect if you go to prison, my advice would be do not go up to the biggest guy and punch him in the nose. Start from there. I don't have a ton of advice. That would be my point one of advice.
Don't you think a lot of guys run the old, if I go to prison scenarios in their head and like just run scenes of what they would do and how they would handle it?
Yeah. And I'm sure it's very inaccurate too. I think you get there and you're like, this is not what I was picturing. I think we've talked about this before, that people aren't that great, I think, in general, picturing scenes in their head. And so, especially when we were younger, we're getting a little older now, but I used to say if you're sitting around a bar drinking with a bunch of friends and you're all 23, everyone is a superhero around that table, imagining scenarios. Everyone around that table is going to punch the biggest guy in the prison in the nose. Yeah. And when they get to the prison, they're going to feel really differently. Well, the example I was going to give is I remember telling a story among those friends about, the idea was I was sitting with someone in a movie theater and a guy started punching someone across the aisle from me. And I was like, what is happening? And a girl was screaming and they all went out to the lobby. And my friends all sitting around the bar are like, what'd you do? And I'm like, I watched the end of the movie. What do you mean what I do? I didn't do anything. And like unanimously, every friend of mine, not one of them, a particularly tough guy, was like, everyone was like, I would have done something. I would have gotten up. And I'm like, yeah, sitting at this bar full of beer, you're all tough guys. In the theater, you're mostly sitting there going, what's happening? Is he punching someone? I don't know what's, like, people don't underestimate how confusing a situation can be while it's happening, or how you feel when it's actually happening. Yeah. So you're just like, what is going on? And then
those can be tricky situations.
And then they're out in the lobby, and you're like, what am I going to do? Run out in the lobby? I'm done with this. So I think people are not great at picturing what they do.
They're not great. You notice it if you go on YouTube and look for road rage fights. These two idiots will get out of the car very often, and usually one of them doesn't know how to fight at all. Yeah. And sometimes the two of them are complete morons and they can't fight a lick. And you're thinking, they got out of a car to fight somebody?
With no ability to do it?
Zero ability. And wow. There's one I saw was particularly brutal, Dan. It was like a dashboard cam. So it's in a parking lot. There's two guys, right? One guy looks like, I'm going to say 35 years old, right? And it looks like he's got some kind of baton in his hand. He looks like a good-sized guy. I'll say 6 feet, 190 pounds, something like this. And he's yelling at the other guy, do you want to lose your kneecaps? Do you want to lose your kneecaps? Now, here's the other guy. The other guy's about 6'2", looks like a very athletic 220 maybe 215, 220, but very athletic. That guy, he does the kind of ostrich thing where he looks around and like, are there witnesses? He looks around the parking lot like this and turns back and goes 1, 2, and you just hear boom, boom, just like club. And the guy with the baton just leaves the picture. Yeah. He gets poleaxed. He goes down so hard. You're like, oh, can you imagine a guy who really knows how to punch, a big, strong guy, and just like connects with 2 punches? I think it was 2, maybe 3. There's like, foam, and the other guy's just like out on the ground.
The guy with the baton, like, that's not how he pictured the scene. No. He's like, that's not how I pictured that going.
No, he looked like somebody who does some kind of martial arts training, perhaps, with a stick, and like he was very confident that he was going to ruin that guy's, which is like, well, in your training, do you actually wreck somebody's kneecaps? How do you know you're going to wreck their kneecaps, you know? Yeah. And he got annihilated so quickly. It was just bizarre. Yeah. I hope he didn't get too hurt.
We've all seen these YouTube videos, and there are occasionally people that just are so confident. And it must work a lot of the time. Like, I'd be a little intimidated with someone's that confident. They just walk up like, I'm going to beat the crap out of you. You're like, they must know something. But sometimes they just get annihilated. You know,
some of them apparently know nothing at all.
Yeah, they seem so confident, and then they don't even have their hands up. They just walk right up and get hit and dropped. And you're like, what was he? Why was he so confident? You know, like he seemed so sure that he was going to go beat the other guy up, but had no idea at all how to fight. Like
so bad.
It's so weird.
It's crazy. I think it's crazy. You really don't want to be mixing it up there out on the streets, man. Because if you get knocked out, now you see some of these videos, people get knocked unconscious, and then the guy who knocked him out hits him like another 5 times.
Yeah. You don't.
That's not good for your brain, Dan. When you're knocked unconscious and somebody's clubbing your skull, not cool, right?
Yeah. I'm not interested in it.
Just
not interested in that.
I'm staying in my car, man. I don't care. Okay, so to optimize your happiness, we've talked about this too. I think there's a name for this, but you sort of have to be at the edge of your known capabilities. You know what I mean? Who's that famous psychologist who had that zone of proximal development?
Oh, yeah.
I think Mark Vignali talked about it, right?
I can't remember who he said.
That's like something Zatsky or something, right? Like
Zygotsky?
Zygotsky? Yeah, I think it's Zygotsky. Yeah. See, I think he was describing something somewhat different, but you got to sort of challenge yourself, right? You can't come in and just beat up the white belts when you're a brown belt. You know what I mean? Like you can do a little of that, but to really feel good about yourself, you got to challenge yourself a little bit, right? You don't have to enter tournaments per se, but you got to find some way to challenge yourself. Or if you're working out, right? Like I know when you run on the treadmill, you go hard, right? You want to like challenge yourself, or you don't feel like it's worth doing it probably, right?
Yeah. I always think that at the gym where I'm like, I got all the way here. I might as well work out.
Right.
You know, and I might as well make the most of it for the effort I put in, you know?
Yeah.
And so slightly different would be the jiu-jitsu gym where, like you said, I think sometimes it could be fun if for a brown belt to come in and just not have a tough day, but they can't do it forever. It's sort of like, it'd be sort of like sitting on the beach forever. Like sooner or later, you're like, I'm not stressing myself. I'm not developing myself.
And if you're avoiding competition, like you're like, oh, I don't want to roll with that guy. He's too tough. If you do that often enough, your inner audience isn't going to be pleased with you, right? They're going to start saying,
inner audience is booing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my inner audience boos sometimes. Shut up, inner audience.
But inner audience is difficult. Yeah.
The example, I think I must have said this probably a year ago on this podcast. That's how I felt when I go to the boxing gym. And I was brand new to box, to stand up, and I didn't know how to box at all. And there was a professional fighter there who would really hurt me. Like it would really hurt. But the way I always put it was, I couldn't bring myself to ever say no when he said, "Do you want to spar?"
Right.
And other people, probably better than me, would
like,
easily be like, "No, I'm not sparring with you," and just like shrug it off like it was nothing. You know, they just be like, "I'm not sparring with you," and just keep hitting the bag, perfectly happy. And he'd be like, "Hey, doctor," you know, he'd be like, "You want to?" No, professor. That's what he called me, professor. I was teaching college at the time.
Hey, professor.
So I was an actual college professor at the time. So he's like, "Professor, you want to spar?" And I'd be like, "Sure." And then I had my inner brain going, "Why did you say sure?" But I couldn't ever stop it.
Your inner voice is saying, no, no. And you go, "Sure."
And not even that. Like, so then we'd go like 3 rounds. He'd go, "We'll go 3 rounds." And I would be getting hit and hurt and be like, "Thank God," when it ended. And he'd go, "Another round?" And I'd be like, "Sure." Like I could never, ever say no. Like, do you want to go more? Do you want to go again? Do you want to like?
Can I guess at something here?
Sure.
Occasionally, you would hit him with the clean shot.
Rarely.
But then you would pay holy hell for that clean shot.
Oh yeah. I remember one in particular.
Yeah.
Where I got him with a left hook. I remember this is 10 years ago, and I remember 12 years ago, and I just hit him, and he was like, he got this he was like, good. But like clearly angry. He was just like, good, there you go. And I'm like, oh, this is gonna be bad. I just like put my hands on my temple. It's just like this is gonna hurt. And he did. He just wailed into me. That might have been when he knocked me out. Like, good one. But like through clenched teeth, and I was like, oh man. Like, I can't hit you one time. That's how I felt because he would just batter me.
That's the beauty of
ring.
jiu-jitsu. If you get over on somebody better, it's not gonna hurt that bad, right?
Punish you, right? Yeah.
Even if
they could, but it's sort of just
it's not as bad, right?
Dominating you. It's not. You're not scared. At least for me, you're not. There's like a fear when someone's really.
You're not getting a concussion.
Yeah, not like this person might knock me out.
Yeah.
There's a different kind of fear to like what you can get in jiu-jitsu, I think.
Definitely.
Unless you felt like they're a maniac and they're really going to choke you out or break something, which I guess they're out there, but not in your gym.
Not in our
Not
gym.
in most gyms. So.
No, not in most gyms. That's pretty rare, I think, these days. People are pretty civilized. Okay, Dan, so my other point, so we did the don't fall in the virtue trap and opt out of competition because your inner audience wants to see you apply yourself. That's where you're going to manage your happiness to optimize it. You're not going to be happy all the time, but you want to optimize it. And you got to be kind of the edge of your capabilities. And then the number 2 thing that came up was we're all locked down. We don't have any social or as much social life to positively influence us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I send you my weight occasionally on a daily basis. And thank God
Try to keep yourself honest.
Thank God I do, Dan, because I've gained, nearly 10 pounds. And it could be a lot worse if I wasn't texting you a number. I have that.
I'm up at least 10, and I stopped texting you just out of fear I stopped weighing myself out of terror. But my inner audience is starting to boo. I'm starting to get slight boo, like the rustling of the inner audience.
Yeah, the murmur.
They're murmuring. You hear one boo.
What's going on here?
Yeah. Boo.
Well,
my inner audience is starting to get unhappy, so I got to get back on it. I thought maybe it's a new month. I'll start this month.
Yeah.
My idea is just I'm going to try next week to just Monday through Wednesday eat clean and no booze.
Nice.
That's so easy. Like that, I don't know if I could live with myself to be like, I couldn't do that for 3 days. So I want to start with that. Or, even if it was 1 day or 2 days, but for me, it's 3 days, like an amount that I feel is like ridiculously easy. Like it's embarrassing if you can't do 3 days.
Yeah.
And then maybe build up from there.
That makes sense.
If I want to, but let me just do 3 days.
Get a win in the books.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then try not to go backwards. And then don't do 2 days the next week. Then try to keep that minimum of 3 days. Because 3 days clean eating compared to 0 days, which is what I'm doing now.
Huge difference.
Yeah, it's a huge, suddenly it's almost half, right? So
you're going to at least stem the tide. You're going to stop the progress of blubber accumulating on your body. You at least stop it. You'll probably lose 3 pounds and then maybe hold that line, right?
Yeah, I got to hold the line.
Yeah. I get it too, man. Good grief. But then you get a little discouraged sitting in lockdown, right? You're like, why the hell not, right?
Yeah, that's what my problem's been. Like, who cares? I'm just sitting here anyway, so.
Can't wait to get back to regular stuff. If they open the restaurants tomorrow, would you go to a restaurant?
I would.
I would go immediately. If they said at noontime we're opening, I would go to the nearest bar, sit down, and have a drink and a meal. Dying for it, yeah. I miss the social. We talked about this. Not the positive social pressures, just the simple little social niceties of, like, if you know a bartender. I sound like an alcoholic, but and you're like, hey, how's it going? And they're like, great, blah 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 blah. Yeah, Brady went to Tampa Bay, blah. It's just like the simple, non-important little connections you make.
Right, or at the gym, right? I mean, I assume a lot of people out there are missing their jiu-jitsu gyms, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And it's not just the jiu-jitsu, it's talking to everyone.
It's a big thing. I didn't realize how important that was, just the kind of casual social connection. I think we need that as a human animal. I don't know. But now, my third point, Dan, was I heard that I guess we don't fit this category, but apparently there's some hyper-conscientious nutcases out there who are crushing lockdown.
Yeah.
Like to get all this extra time, so they're eating healthier than ever. They're doing projects. You know what I mean? They're putting an addition on their house, putting a garden in or something like this. Is that happening?
I I could imagine. I mean, I'm trying to get things done around my house, but I'm net negative. Like
You're net negative.
I'm net negative in my health and my eating. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
and I'm not working out as hard as I was.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to offset it by like getting things done. Like I painted part of my house, and I'm trying to just not sit there all day. But it's not. It's net negative. It's still less than I probably would have got this stuff done anyway. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel like I'm probably just doing the same amount around the house that I would have. And I think your point was people crushing it and doing more.
Yeah. I'm not doing more. Well, what I've started doing, Dan, is I'm trying to minimize my life. So I've been on this kick where every day I'm removing one thing from my house. And if I go to the academy for whatever to do something over there, I try to remove one thing from my office there. Yeah.
What do you remove? Like Rory? Is Rory out?
No, just like we have all these unnecessary items in our life, I have too many clothes.
Yeah, I could do that for a year probably.
I got too many pairs of jeans. I got too many T-shirts that I'm never going to wear again. Just stuff like that,
Fancy hats.
My head is too big. I'm not a hat guy. I wish I could wear hats. I'm kind of like the JFK of jiu-jitsu.
Scarves. Are you getting rid of scarves?
I've never worn a scarf in my life.
Yeah, I think I have, but I'm
don't
pretty
wear
close
hats.
to zero.
I don't own an umbrella. I don't think I've ever owned an umbrella in my life.
We talked about umbrellas on
We
here,
did,
right? Too?
yeah.
I'm sort of anti-umbrella.
I'm anti-umbrella. I'm sort of anti-scarf, to be honest with you.
I think I'm anti-scarf.
I'm okay with the hats.
I think I'm anti-scarf, umbrella. Well, a warm hat is all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cowboy hat, I wouldn't say I'm a big fan of in the Northeast.
Right.
Should be for warmth.
I can't wear a cowboy hat. I look like one of those bobbleheads anyways. If I put a big cowboy hat on me, it would look ridiculous. Yeah.
But so you're trying to minimize your life, trying to take things. Like I said, I could throw something out every day for a year probably.
Yeah. I feel better by doing it. It's sort of like that. Who's that one? Marie Kondo?
Yeah.
What is her thing?
We talked about it, and I forgot what it's called. The
joy of cleaning up?
Yeah, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not minimizing.
Joy of tidying up.
Right. But it's not. It's not minimizing. Isn't the word she uses? Right. It's like not consolidating something. But you get the.
I'm doing a little of that, right? Minimizing. It feels good. I feel like if I minimize enough, when we get back to normal, I'll be ready to hit the ground running. I don't know. Okay, so the next thing I have, Dan, is I'm reading The Fighter's Mind. Pretty good book. We referenced it last week a couple of times. Yeah. So I read the chapter about Marcelo Garcia, and it was okay. I thought it would be better, actually. I thought he'd have better insights. But maybe I've just read so much about Marcelo Garcia because I'm such a fan that none of it seemed like news to me,
What is Marcelo Garcia's current status? I think he retired from competing, didn't he?
He retired from competing, Dan, but now he's talking about coming out of retirement to compete.
And he's not that old still, right? Late 30s?
I believe you're correct. Yeah. Which is super exciting if he comes out to compete with these new young guns.
It'd be interesting to see what happens. Yeah.
It would be. And I'll tell you this, his style of jiu-jitsu still holds up, I think, and for Nogi. And the John Danaher guys, the Danaher Death Squad, a lot of the stuff that they do, he does as well, too. Except for, I don't think he does the leg attack so much. But it would be really cool to see him compete again. And see
interesting, and it's a great example of coming out of your comfort zone and not falling for the ego trap, right? I mean, he could stay out now and be in the discussion as for best ever, right? Best jiu-jitsu practitioner.
He's in the discussion for greatest of all time, yeah.
So, he has more to lose than to win, probably, for coming out. But.
One way to look at it, yeah. I'm actually surprised that he retired. I don't know. But, he had kids, I think, and he's like a doting father or something like that. That's why he did.
It's a good reason.
I guess, yeah. But it's going to be cool to see him compete again. But some of the things that I got out of him is, I heard him say this at a different place. They sort of referenced it. They call him, the chapter is called like the king of the scrambles. But he has this notion in jiu-jitsu, Dan, is to do one more thing. It's overly simplistic, of course, but it's just trying to convey this concept of like, just keep scrambling, trying to make something happen. You know what I mean? So somebody's passing your guard. he's always like, just do one more thing to stop them from passing your guard. Or if you're trying to sweep, just do one more thing. And I guess you could call it an mindset or an attitude, but it's actually very, very effective, you know. And you can be creative. Like sometimes I'll be rolling with my son, and he'll catch me off balance and like get a butterfly sweep on me, but I'm able to like position my hands on his hips and sort of roll through and come back out, so he doesn't really complete the sweep because I'm doing that one more thing. You know what I mean?
Right. I feel like it's the same thing, or I always envisioned it more as like just don't stop, like, you know, just keep
exactly.
going and going.
Yeah.
Same idea, right?
Yeah.
Same exact thing, I think.
Yeah.
Like just always just keep.
I think
because it's not really one more thing; it's one more thing, and then one more thing, and then one more thing, and then, you know.
Maybe that's the beauty of that phrase, is it makes it sound easy. Like, oh, I can always do one more thing. But if you were to tell somebody, just keep going and don't stop, they're like, well, I got to stop sooner or later. Yeah. But if just one more thing, because sometimes, I mean, well, always, ultimately it's going to be one more thing that wins the position for you, right? So, it's overly simplistic, but it's probably a pretty good way to say it. And then I've always known this about Marcelo Garcia, or I've read it before, is, so what do you think he says his secret is to jiu-jitsu? Why he's so good?
I don't know.
Do you not know? He says, and I think he's onto something here, is he says he loves jiu-jitsu more than anyone else loves jiu-jitsu. So how I think that works itself out and realize how that evidences itself, or what that manifests is, he's not worried about his ego as much. He just loves the jiu-jitsu. Like, if you sweep him, he's like, look at the beauty of that sweep. You know what I mean? And it allows him to be creative and allows him to be in the moment. And
right, or even if he lost, he could find great interest in what happened to him.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
yeah. So then you're never, I think if you can truly embrace that and maintain that attitude, which is probably really hard, you're never going to be distracted by self-consciousness. You're just going to be in the moment of jiu-jitsu, you know, very, I don't know if you would call that Zen-like, but it sounds pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Something I'm striving for all the time is just to be all about the jiu-jitsu, not about myself or my performance.
Yeah, it reflects some things we've said and you've said before on here. And it seems to be, I think it's part of what's helping Rory as well, right? Like Rory seems to just really love jiu-jitsu, and like, and it will also help you continually go in. You're not like, it's not a chore. You're not like, oh, I don't want to go in again, but I should for the benefits. And, you know, like, you're like, I want to do it. I want to go. I want to learn. And circling back to saying, not being afraid to challenge yourself against someone that's good. If you're sort of like, if you feel like you'll learn some things going with someone that's good, you'll want to do that as well, right? It's not about beating someone or winning or losing. You're like, I think I could learn going with that person, right? So it applies to that as well.
You're less likely to shirk the competition. Yeah. That makes perfect sense, Dan. Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah. Very, very cool. I was going to say something else that escaped me now that you said that. Yeah, but that's what I guess I'm trying to love jiu-jitsu, but I'm trying to be about the jiu-jitsu. Oh yeah, when you know, it's our nature is to be concerned about our status and losing esteem from other people and ourselves by losing. That's why it's so painful to quote unquote lose in jiu-jitsu. So what he's managed to do is not easy. It's actually very unnatural, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a fluke that he just happens to love jiu-jitsu so much, but
it's also, he almost probably never loses, you know, so it's a little easier, like extremely rarely loses.
That's an interesting point, Dan, right?
Yeah.
It's easier to love something that you're really, really good at, right?
Yeah.
So that's a sort of a philosophical question, isn't it? Should you search out for the things that you really love, or should you just try to really love whatever the hell it is that you're doing?
It's not either or, I think.
Right.
You can try to love the things you're doing, and you're just going to love it more if you're good at it.
Maybe search out the things that you love to do and then try to love them even more, and that'll probably help you get better, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty good one we just came up with. That wasn't even in the notes, Dan.
We invented a new philosophy right here on the spot. For
love
those who stuck with us through
That's
the
it.
end, they saw the invention of a new mindset.
New mindset. Find something you love and try to love it even more. I like it. Sounds like very pop psychology. I like it. All right, man. I think it's a natural time to wrap this up. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Hope everybody is safe and healthy out there.
Maybe one of these episodes will be welcoming everyone back to the gym.
I can't wait, man. A lot of students, Dan, have reached out to me. They've been so kind, so supportive. We have such an awesome group of people. I'm just, I feel very blessed and very grateful to know all these wonderful people. And I hope they all stay safe and healthy. And I can't wait to see them soon, man. All right, we'll see you all next week.